Then night came and they were doing something in that bed and it clearly was beyond French fries. So then I had to remember it's daylight savings time and Bryce and Trinity were bumping uglies. What's up, fellow Love Island USA viewers? We are starting a new week of the show, our last week of the show, and last night we had to deal with some not so great singing and karaoke, though I did find it to be a fun challenge. I gotta give them credit for doing it sober, because I can never. Although, if you've learned anything this season, the guys this season have no shame, so it should be no surprising they were able to do that. We started episode 29 with Kenzie kind of whining to Dylan about Melanie's vote and how it was a slap in the face because they were friends, and Melanie said that Kenzie would still be exploring and she wouldn't. Kenzie was feeling backstabbed and hurt. She felt shit on for having a good connection. Honestly, this episode was a nice reminder to people of how full of shit Kenzie is. This was the start of that. We'll circle back to Kenzie. We didn't need a reminder that Sincere is full of shit, but we did get that reminder too. Melanie told Sincere that she will be in trouble with them voting for Kenzie, and Sincere went on and on about how he feels like he can speak for Kenzie because he knows where Kenzie's coming from with all the exploring. Melanie had to point out to him that Kenzie can say the same thing about Sincere, and Kenzie didn't vote for them, so that is going to be another reason why Kenzie has hurt feelings. Then Sincere started some bullshit talking the whole episode about how he doesn't think their relationship is toxic. He just has toxic moments. I don't know if he was trying to convince Melanie, if he was trying to convince us, or if he was trying to convince himself. Because he then told the audience in a confessional that they have these conversations about how they want a healthy relationship. And he told Melanie he's done deceiving. And I do not believe Sincere is done deceiving, not even a little bit. I mean, yeah, for this season, with a week left, he has nobody to deceive with. But once Sincere is back into the real world, with no cameras, forget about it. He's going to be worse than he was on the show. And then again, Sincere complained to the guys about how they're not a toxic couple. He just did toxic things. Sincere being the biggest bullshitter per usual. In this episode, Parmida and Corbin talked about how, well, Parmida especially talked about how she was upset with Kenzie for choosing them, voting for them the episode prior. She thinks Kenzie is petty and still has something against Corbin. Corbin says that Parmida shouldn't give Kenzie this energy. And he talked about how they had a great connection. It's not just because she's beautiful, it's her mindset. And, you know, I kind of believe Corbin that he really thinks this about Parmida. As short-term as this connection will be, I have seen over these past few episodes why they are into each other, even if the main reason is because they're shallow. Carl and Aniya finally had a little bit of an edit. She was happy that he picked her and happy that they had no votes. They hugged and talked about how happy they were and how excited they were to officially be a couple, finally be a couple, sharing a bed for the first time. Even Aniya and Titi had a discussion about how compatible Aniya and Carl seemed to be. Though I must say that Carl later in this episode said something that had Aniya fans spiraling, and maybe rightfully so. Because we did learn that Carl thinks Kayda is hot. She's hot stuff. And, you know, production was probably petty for keeping this in because the conversation was pretty random. But maybe it was also something we needed to hear. I don't necessarily see this as a big deal overall, although a lot of Aniya and Carl fans were freaking out. However, like I have been saying, we don't know this man. We truly are not going to get to know this man in less than 3 weeks of TV time that he will have left in the villa. We never got to see him truly explore or test, so this is new info to us. And I will say this, had this been Bryce saying Parmida is hot, the scammer allegations would be so overblown. I don't want to overblow Carl saying this, but this show has a history of bombshells joining midway through the season. I feel like pretty much every male bombshell that has joined the show midway through the season and lasted long have been full of shit. So Carl has this history that he is also fighting against. Not much else happened before the next day except for one big deal with Bryce and Trinity. Although we did have KC and Titi talking about how her Casa friends were being voted out. We had Kada and Zach happy to not have any votes the episode prior. Zach was talking about how everyone sees what they have. Although I think what America sees is his lies finally catching up to him. Bryce and Trinity were happy for themselves in this episode too. And I thought this episode ended up being a good episode for them, as they have not had much of an edit these few episodes prior, but they did in this one. He's feeling special that he got to choose her this time at the recoupling, where it was finally just the men choosing. And she said she is happy to be reassured, and she feels like he pours life into her, and that she's starting to feel deeply for him. Again, I believe her. She says that, they talked about the type thing again, and she says that actually on paper, he is her type. He joked that he was chopped, and I can see why he feels chopped in that house, because he hasn't had a lot of attention outside of Sydney and Casa. They then had one of their gossip sessions in bed that night, chatting about Melanie's move and how Kenzie feels and how Melanie was just being real with that move. Again, I like their gossip sessions. I can relate to their gossip sessions. If you don't have gossip sessions with your significant other, you're kind of boring. And I feel like some people see that as a negative, but it really just means your man isn't interested in your life if you can't have gossip sessions about your lives with each other. Then night came, and they were doing something in that bed, and it clearly was beyond French fries. So then I had to remember it's daylight savings time, and Bryce and Trinity were bumping uglies. The only friendship vibe scamming actors from Tubi were bumping uglies. You could see the moment on camera when when Trinity had this look on her face that I've seen many times before when you're entering a woman. And then they got under the covers. The next morning, Bryce wanted to have some couth about it as the elder and didn't want to tell anyone. And as we've seen so far, at least in the edit, Bryce has not went to the guys to be like, oh my god, I had sex with Trinity. But Trinity told Kayda the next day that they fucked. And frankly, I have enjoyed seeing the stages of this relationship play out, because despite the noise, it's actually one of the more natural progressions of a relationship that we've ever seen on Love Island USA. From are they just friends, to trying something else, to trying each other again, to becoming a real relationship, to after 5 weeks giving into each other. That's a natural relationship for a millennial like Bryce. Parmida was telling Kenzie that she stopped Corbin from voting for her ass, which is true. Parmida did stop Corbin from wanting to vote for Kenzie. She talked about how she sees how Kenzie moves and she can match Kenzie's energy. I mean, I like that Parmida was willing to give us some drama, but Kenzie, per usual, just plays the damn victim. Titi was there for some reason during the conversation between Kenzie and Parmida, working their stuff out, because Parmida still feels like Kenzie was being petty, and Kenzie was more understanding in this conversation because she felt like Caleb was being petty with his vote, so I guess that was a similar feeling. Parmida doesn't want Kenzie to feel stuck in the past and still taking things out on Corbin, and Titi was telling Parmida that everyone had a right to vote the way they did, which is true, but Parmida doesn't like Kenzie's reasons, and I stand with Parmida during this argument. Dylan was talking to Corbin at the same time, saying that he doesn't want Kenzie singled out for their vote because he played a part in it too, which is, I guess, big of Dylan. And in the end, the three girls did hug it out, and Parmida and Kenzie seemed to work things out. Bitch ass Zach was telling Sincere that he didn't feel lied to and blindsided from Sincere like Corbin did. But, per usual, Corbin is like the only guy in the house that can keep it real. Corbin and Sincere had a conversation about Corbin's vote for Sincere, and Sincere apologized and says he knows that Corbin was just calling him out on his BS. Did I believe Sincere's apology? No. Do I believe anything that Sincere says at this point? No. He has struck out with me a long time ago. Corbin pointed out his reasoning for the vote again, that he didn't like defending Sincere when Sincere was BSing everybody, and then Corbin looks bad. And I do want to give props to Corbin for holding Sincere accountable. Again, someone has on this show, and that is nice to see. Sincere kept saying that he wants to grow and he has learned. He says this is genuine growth. Once again, I don't believe him, because then Sincere then said, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. And again, I call bullshit. You cannot change in a day. This cast really just be saying anything, trying to bullshit. And this was some clear bullshit from Sincere yet again. Melanie tried to give Kenzie her perspective on the vote and why she voted for her and Dylan, and said that she didn't feel like Kenzie was done exploring. She wants Kenzie to be with the right person, and she felt like Kenzie's not done yet. Kenzie said that's not true. After her talk with Gall, that cleared everything up. Melanie called out Kenzie for feeling like she's Kenzie's friend, but not vice versa. And finally, Melanie called out Kenzie on her bullshit with the whole Jen and Soul stuff when they entered the villa, because Melanie felt like they don't talk much anymore, and she saw Kenzie with Soul a lot during that era, and Kenzie was never checking up on Melanie. We all know that Kenzie got close to Jen, but Kenzie was also acting so close with Soul, and it was under the guise of Soul needs a friend. But when Kenzie was, waiting until Soul left conversations to talk to Jen because she only trusted Jen, it showed that Kenzie was full of shit. Kenzie was clearly being weird about befriending Soul when the whole Melanie and Corbin were coupled up stuff was going on, because Kenzie still wanted Corbin. I think Kenzie is a terrible friend, and it was good to see Melanie poke at that. Kenzie, again, she cried. She played the victim. Kenzie was apologetic. In confessional, she said she was hurt, and she didn't realize Melanie felt she was there for Soul and not her. I don't believe Kenzie. I think Kenzie plays dumb, and she plays like she's not lustful, and she plays like she hasn't been a shitty friend who's always going behind friends' backs with their men. Kenzie is a fraud. And this episode, once again, many episodes this season proved it, but this episode once again proved just that. We then had our couples karaoke. I thought it was a fun challenge. In the preparation for it, we got to see some more connections with the couples. I really wish they would do more challenges like this, especially early on. They've really sucked with challenges this season. Parmida and Corbin, I thought they were hilarious throughout this entire challenge. Before the challenge, we have two completely different voices. Parmida, who thinks that she needs to sing like she's trying to break mirrors, and Corbin with his deep-ass voice. Just two voices that do not make good music together. I thought that KC and Titi were having a good time preparing for this challenge. They did not get a lot of airtime again, but it seemed like they had a really good time here, and I felt like this was a good episode for them, because they really did seem to have fun working on this challenge together, and you should be able to have fun with your couple. Just like I felt like Bryce and Trinity were having fun during this challenge as well. When they were prepping for that, they really got to show just how big of a goofballs they both are. And then Kenzie, of course, was teaching Dylan the splits, because what else is Kenzie going to do? Parmida and Corbin went first. They were singing Dilemma by Nelly and Kelly Rowland, the best song chosen, in my opinion, during this karaoke. But unfortunately, they cannot sing, like I said, but they gave it a good try, and I feel like they still tried to have fun with it. TT and Casey seemed very nervous before they sang Ain't No Mountain High Enough. They were pretty good at the start, I felt like. They started okay. They could not keep that momentum singing-wise as the song went on. I felt like both of their singing got worse. And I feel like they were more focused on the dancing. But they clearly had fun with the dancing for sure, and I thought it was a pretty good performance. Kada and Zach, apparently Zach's a singer, but they were singing Endless Love, a much slower song than everyone else. And Kayda can't sing with that voice. Like, it was so flat. It was as flat as ever. They had this more loving ballad that they were going for, but it was so slow and just not as fun as the others. Melanie and Sincere saying you're the one that I want. And I felt like they had a fun performance. Neither of them can sing, but they had a fun performance. Melanie afterwards said like she felt so connected to him during this performance, and it's her favorite memory with him. And like I can see why it's her favorite memory, because she's been done dirty by him the entire time before this, so she needs a new good memory with Sincere. Aniya and Carl sang Senorita. It was another fun performance. I felt like, similar to Melanie and Sincere, I felt like it was another fun performance, except Aniya and Carl are slightly better singers. I felt like Aniya and Carl had good harmony together. Like when it was time for them to sing at the same time, it was the best part of their performance. Maybe that is some symbolism that they can have a good harmony with each other. We'll see about that, but I did enjoy their performance. In fact, I would say they might have been my favorite. Trinity and Bryce sang No Air by Jordan Sparks and I think Chris Brown. They can't sing, but what I gained from this performance, again, these are just two goofs. Whether they win or not, this episode was so good for Bryce and Trinity, in my opinion, because it actually showed how similar they really are, despite the age gap, which I think is their biggest problem. When it comes down to their personalities, they are just goofy together. I have always said their chemistry is goofy, and I know couples with this exact same rapport that Bryce and Trinity have with each other. They were rough singers, though I did not enjoy their performance. I thought Bryce was trying to do too much, but they did have a good ending together. I felt like they finished strong. And then Kenzie and Dylan allegedly had the best performance. They were singing Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Dylan was performing like the Broadway actor that he seems to come across on the show to me. But Kenzie did sing well. Kenzie could carry a tune here, and I do think that's why I put them over the edge. You know, we had the whole Dylan jumping over Kenzie, which I think the other Islanders liked that part of the performance too. But I felt Kenzie's singing was actually the best part of the performance. The couples ranked from best to worst themselves. Corbin and Parmida got last. Kada and Zach got 6th place. Aniya and Carl and Trinity and Bryce tied in 4th place. Titi and KC and Melanie and Sincere tied in 2nd place. And Kenzie and Dylan got 1st place. I felt Aniya and Carl were too low in the couples rankings here. Then, of course, Ariana had news for the Islanders that America had been voting on the most compatible couples, and the top 4 would be safe, and the top 4 were Aniya and Carl, Trinity and Bryce, Melanie and Sincere, who were shocked, and they should be shocked. And I don't think it's a good thing that y'all voted Melanie and Sincere in the top 4. And then Titi and Casey were also in the top 4. You know, unlike the people in the villa who were shocked Casey and Titi were in the top 4, I was not. Even Titi and KC themselves were shocked. I think Casey and Titi were actually shocked because Casey actually does have guilt for moving like shit during this season, but they don't understand the cult following of incels and people with terrible past relationship history that, you know, have come together for KC to give him these pity votes. I've been talking about Casey having this following of hateful men since week 2. And I still stand on that. Because I said on Saturday that Casey and Titi would be in the top 4. The surprise to me in the top 4 was Melanie and Sincere. Because for Melanie fans to hate Sincere as much as they should, and apparently allegedly do, voting them in the top is just going to reinforce her bad decision making with Sincere. However, am I very pleased that Kada and Zach were actually in the bottom 3? Hell yeah, that's all I've been wanting for so long. The bullshit about this challenge is that since Casey and Dylan won the challenge, it kept them safe from the elimination vote here, even though they were in the bottom 3. So it came down to Kada and Zach versus Corbin and Parmida. And with these Islanders, Corbin and Parmida were never going to stand a chance. The only couple that voted them to stay was Casey and Titi. Every other couple went and voted for Zach and Kada to stay. So it was rest in peace to Corbin and Parmida. And, you know, Corbin even got emotional on the way out. We got to see AI actually cry. And for anyone paying attention, Sincere was full of joy that Corbin was out of here and was basically laughing at Corbin's crying because, God forbid Sincere be called out on his fake, lying, poor behavior. But yeah, fuck, bro. Corbin is now eliminated. His elimination, though, and him getting emotional was a good reminder about how some of this cast, besides, Bryce, Carl, and Parmida, are so young, and they're going to make bad decisions. And they have made bad decisions this season, some of them. But they have, growing that they hopefully will do. I am willing to give most people on these shows a second chance, especially if they are younger. I don't give 3 strikes, though I give 2. You get 1 strike with me, your second strike, you're out, and I'm going to talk a lot of shit about you, which is why Sincere has had so many strikes with me. I don't believe a word that he says, and he's not going to change on this show. Hopefully one day he will change after this show. Do I think it's going to be immediately after this show? No, I do not. But that's why I've been willing to, give Corbin a chance, even though he's talked a lot of shit this season, especially when he's with KC. But he also does keep it real with people, and I respect that because a lot of people on the show don't do that. I'm worried about the decisions KC and Titi will have to make when they get out and they see their cult following. Because, we already saw Caleb lying on social media because of social media. He was lying about he was interested in Melanie the whole time. And I still call bullshit on that. So I do wonder if KC will, walk back his poor behavior and his apologies to Aniya. And will he throw Aniya under the bus to appeal to his incel fan base? It's possible because Huda followed that path. Shally and Ace tried to follow that path with their own fans. And, they still have drama to this day that I might talk about today or tomorrow. So, yeah, I've given KC a second chance after all his apologies for Aniya. But if he's acting a fool after the show, will I be here ripping him up? You best believe. Speaking of ripping people up, in the preview, Kada and Zach are spiraling. As they should be, because they suck. And America has finally shown them what we really think of them. And, some of the conversations they're having, Zach especially, I think might just look like the scammer that he is in this next episode. If, they're spiraling because they've been together since day 3. It's hard for me, though, because I really do think that Kayda is head over heels for Zach. Because I just don't believe, I know some of you have these damn conspiracy theories that these are just all really good actors. And that's just not how reality television works. Especially on your first show, your first season of reality television, you're going to be this good of an actor. Kayda's crying during Casa was true emotions. She had a real breakdown, real tears streaming down her face. I think Kayda is head over heels for Zach. Unfortunately for Kayda, she's with someone who doesn't like her, and America was able to pick up on that. So I am looking forward to their spirals tonight.